Welcome to the Brave Feminine Leadership interview series. Today, I am absolutely delighted to be introducing Judy Deuchar to the conversation. Judy, welcome.
Hi, Melissa. Thank you so much for having me today.
Now, Judy, I'm going to kick off by touching on your bio for people who haven't had the pleasure of coming across you before. And so, Judy is a globally seasoned CEO and brand strategist with over 30 years shaping iconic retail and lifestyle brands across the UK, Australia, South Africa, the US, and Asia. Judy's led high impact businesses across live commerce, e-commerce, TV shopping, and wholesale. And she's known for driving innovation, building strong cultures, and forging long-term partnerships with global brand names, including Sony and Vogue. Judy is also a board advisor, a contributing editor, a multi-award winning exec, and a pickleball playing, painting loving mum of three in Sydney. Judy, I remember when you and I first connected, and some of the words you used to describe yourself were a girl who loves product, drives change, and can't sit still. So let's get into, I'll ask you the first question. I mean, who are you as a human being? Let's get into your career story and this amazing kind of evolution.
Wow.
Who are you?
Actually, those words are so true. And I think that they hold true for so many years and probably to my dying day. I love product. I love people and I love problems. I love a challenge. I struggle to sit still. So I think that growing up, I grew up in Cape Town in South Africa, and my parents were divorced at a very young age. And I think that you kind of, so my mom and I've got a younger sister, and I think you kind of learn survival techniques, if you like, and you learn that you're having to stand on your own two feet. So I think it's always just been part of my DNA, is that it's going to be up to me to make a difference or up to me as to what I do in this life. And I've got choices. So I don't know, I don't think I've overly thought about it. I think it just is part of the DNA. I was very fortunate. I went to the University of Cape Town and I wanted to study art. My dad said it was a little bit of a Mickey Mouse degree. So that was a no. So I did a social science featuring in business and did a postgraduate with the University of Cape Town in conflict management and marketing. So I think there's always something about the creative that I wanted to do. I actually started working at Foschini Group, which is a large retailer out in Africa. Actually, they've got quite a few other branches in other countries. I started working for American Swiss, which is a beautiful jewelry store, and I'm so grateful for those times. Traditional retail, which was excellent for me. What I loved was that whole world of business, and I went into buying actually. It was originally meant to go into marketing, went into buying, and I loved that mixture of science and with the math of trying to work out the deal, and then also the creativity to make it your own. I really loved the challenge. I loved the challenge of being better than the person that I saw in front of me. I was very fortunate to have some great leaders, and that people I could easily see up front. I wanted to be a little bit more like them. So really fortunate to do that. Also, some people that I didn't want to ever be like. But that was good.
We learn the most
And
from
yeah, you do. You really do. And, you take those lessons with you for life. I think one of the best lessons I could have learned there was about teamwork, really. And that you need everybody in the organization. The person who is having to pack the orders in the warehouse, because I worked for a month in the warehouse, a month in stores, and then a month in an area other than where I was going to end up. And that's actually how I got into buying, because I was meant to go into marketing. And I was very fortunate, within a couple of months or 6 months, I actually got promoted to junior buyer and as a silver buyer. And also another very good lesson. I'll never forget the first area manager meeting that I had, and I was so proud, bought a special outfit, the whole thing, thought I had everything organized. And they walked in, and I thought I had my whole little pitch all perfect. And I remember it's the diamond business. And they said, "Oh, you knew, who are you?" And I said, "Oh, I'm Judy and I'm the silver buyer." And the head of the area manager says, "Oh, so what do you do for the other 4 days of the week?" And I was
Oh,
like, "Right, game on." And I think that was such a good lesson, in that moment you feel so small and bewildered, and your confidence gets knocked. And I was determined never to feel like that again. So I think I've always put in more than I think would have been expected and challenged, really. So yes, I was very fortunate. So that's kind of how I got there. I moved around to gold and then diamonds and then house brand watches and learnt a lot. And then met my husband, actually, he was in IT, and I was on the user test group for a new project. And I don't know, but a year later, I was engaged and we moved over to London. And we were very fortunate in that we were both offered our jobs back for when, you come back after a year, like most South Africans do. You go
Was that
and explore.
it his role or your role that took you guys to the UK? How did that work?
Actually, we didn't have a job,
Oh, wow.
but you're young, you've just got engaged, and we thought before we have dogs and kids,
Yes.
um, this is the time to move and just challenge yourself, push, you know, embrace, I think, what's out there. So we moved over. I was very, also once again, fortunate, had some great references. People had given me, and this is before, in all fairness, the internet.
Yes.
So it was kind of printing faxes at the post office. And we lived on baked potatoes and we lived in a studio flat, which is also, once again, a very good lesson, very humbling. You're in Cape Town, you both got a lovely car, had a lovely company car, you're both sort of living it up, and you go to a whole new country and you basically poor as paupers, and you have to sell yourself again, and what you're about. And actually, a jewelry supplier had got me a job interview at a company called QVC. I'd already been and was very fortunate enough to have had a job offered to me at Burberry's in accessories, at Harrods in fashion. And I was like, oh, I don't really know if I want to go into jewelry in the UK. You know, you think it's a little bit backwards. Also, bear in mind I'm young
Yes.
and so naive and, in all fairness, so full of myself, when I look back at it now, because I'd had a very good run at Foschini Group and had done well. And, you arrive, really fresh from the continent. Um, and it was really humbling, actually. I had to start again. And I started off as the gold buyer at QVC. So I went for this. QVC is a shopping channel. Actually, it's the world's largest shopping channel, and they had just opened up an arm in the UK. And somebody offered me really good advice because I was thinking, oh, I should definitely work for Burberry's or for Harrods. It's such a great name. And somebody said to me, you're so young, go somewhere where you can really do something other than where you want to end up. If you look at the systems that they had at Burberry's and at Harrods at the time, they were quite antiquated and old, and they were just saying that's where you want to end up necessarily. Really go and fight for it a little bit. Also had a fantastic buying director who interviewed me at QVC. Really loved her. Unfortunately, she's passed away, but she had said something to me which has stuck with me forever. And she said, whatever you put into this, Judy, is what you're going to end up with.
Mm.
And it's such a simple saying, but it's probably one of those mantras that I've told every single person that I've hired. Whatever you put into this job is what you're going to get out of it. So, and
For
that
life,
goes
really.
for positive thinking. Um, it goes towards your attitude, to how you're going to tackle a business problem, a difficult person, an area that's unknown. And I'm so grateful for those words of wisdom. Yeah, and then I ended up, and I started off as a gold buyer. Within a year, I was head of jewelry. I think within sort of 2 years, I was head of beauty and jewelry and home, and I loved it. It was actually a business that they were thinking of closing and then ended up just taking off. And I absolutely loved the freedom. I also think I learned very much about taking control. I am ambitious. I love a challenge. And I was like, I don't know anything about TV. I have no idea about, I've never bought beauty before. I've never bought homewares before. But it was there for the taking.
Mm.
And also something I've learned from that journey is don't expect to be handed it to you. You have to fight for it. Own the position before it becomes yours. And you naturally assume it. Well, that's my opinion. So
Yeah.
I think that own it, own it. Be brave. Just go forth and be yourself. Be humble, because there are too many fancy pants people out and too many people who do lunch.
Yes.
I'm really not do lunch person. I believe in working, through the lunch instead. So it's been quite good to navigate through that. And then my father passed away, and probably about 14, 15 years into the QVC sort of relationship. And my dad had always been, whilst at an arm's length, really, he'd been very successful in business. And I think somehow I'd always wanted to prove myself to him. Obviously, you realize these things afterwards. And at his funeral, someone said to me, "Oh, Judy, your dad would be so proud of you. You're going to end up just like him." And I was like, "Oh, I know they meant it as a compliment." But he'd been divorced and was a tough man to live with, I think, and to work for, no matter how enigmatic he was. And I realized I really love my husband and I love my children and I actually want to be there. And I was at the stage where I was getting so annoyed that I was having to take the children into school in the mornings because it meant getting to my desk late. And I was like, actually, that's not who I am. And life is too short to be sitting with that. I also had a bit of a health scare, and I was like, you know what? That's it. So I left and I started my own business, consulting business. Um, and in that, I had some phenomenal clients. I also jumped in with 2 feet, and I ended up being the MD for L accessories and jewelry in Asia. We opened up stores in Japan and in China, in Beijing. We launched Lulu Guinness. Worked a little bit for Estee Lauder, so it was phenomenal, like really good. And I was on holiday in St. Lucia, probably a good 2 or 3 daiquiris in the morning, and I got a call from a headhunter to say, "There's this job in Australia. Would you be interested?" And I was like, "Oh no!" Like I feel as if I've got my act together, and I've got a little bit of life balance, and I can spend time with my husband and my kids, and I love the work that I'm doing. I love the variety, and anyway, ended up going for the interview and to Australia for the week. And I met a gentleman who um, truly was inspirational. There are a few in my life that I can really remember that have made such a big impact in my career. And this gentleman, he was the owner of the business of a company called TVSN, the shopping channel in Australia and New Zealand. And he said to me, "Why do you want to work for us?" And I said, "Oh, actually, I don't. I don't mean to be rude, but I'll happily help you consult and I'll train the new person." And he said to me, "I'll tell you what, I'm just going to assume you're coming. Let's talk about life and let's talk about how you view things." Best conversation.
Yeah.
And he and the business partner at the time, both called Chris, were really inspirational. And I found myself moving to Australia with my family 4 months later. So,
I'm going to
um,
stop you for a sec, Judy, because there's
yeah.
things that came through in that story that I'd love to
Mhm.
put for people. I mean, firstly, when I think about, what an unexpected gift in some ways that comment from someone at your
Mm,
dad's funeral,
mm,
as far as
mm.
literally making you stop in your tracks and reevaluate, because we don't get those chances, right? It's head down,
No,
go, go,
no.
go.
Absolutely. I think we can often be so determined and tunnel visioned about what what we believe is the next step to be successful. What does success look like? And actually, if anything, we all just know, I'm in LA at the moment, and you know that we just in LA, they've gone through all these different fires. And you think about all those people who'd stored possessions and memories and who they were in a property. And I think that it's a really big lesson for all of us in that no title or job should be defining you. It's about what is your purpose in life as to what's the thing in the morning that's going to drive you. And I think it was really good. I think you get to it where you're like, "Oh, I need a better car. I need a better handbag as a girl. Um, I need to do that holiday and I need to do this. And in order to be seen as successful, to feel successful. But, these are all hollow things at the end of the day. Um, until you find out what your real purpose is. It's not in a title and not it's not in a name plaque outside your door. At the end of the day, can you go to sleep with peace of mind? Or do you have great girlfriends to support you.
Yes. The second thing that jumped out at me at that story is that it's a really good thing to take a phone call several daiquiris in on holidays.
Well,
You never
it's
know.
certainly life-changing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then so you've been to Australia and you've met, because I get, given the career that you've got, there's got to be a really core sales skill as part of who you
Hmm.
are, intrinsically. And
Yeah.
it sounds like as you arrived here in Australia, you may have met your match.
Yeah. No, it's been really good. I think a very great opportunity. And it's such a beautiful country, firstly. And then from a work perspective, in England, I already knew that I was a foreigner. No matter how much you try and ingratiate yourself into the world, we weren't born in England. And then you come into Australia and you weren't born Australian. And you think to yourself that, okay, so maybe, it's a very typical class structure, very strict class structure in the UK in the way that you do business. And I was fortunate that because I'd worked so much in the East and done a lot of work in the US, you learn to morph yourself as to know who your audience is. And that's not about being disingenuous to who you are. It's more just about being respectful as to who your audience is. And then, you get to Australia and the same thing happens. And I thought, oh, Australia would be a little easier because, it looks like it's the land of relaxation and lovely. And you think the country's newer, relatively speaking. And so therefore there won't be so many indoctrinated beliefs. But there are.
There are.
Um, and, that's great because that's why Australia is the way it is. It's such a beautiful country. There's hardly any upsets politically, honestly, relatively speaking. And, it's a safe, beautiful place with a very proud nation, which actually is a treasure. So then you get to the leadership position and you get to the framework of how things are done. It's very much like South Africa, actually. It's who you know, not always what you know. Um, it's very, it's not always inclusive, I would say. But, that's also my responsibility then to feel to work hard to make sure that I become part of the fabric of the country and also learn the mannerisms in which you work. My perfect example, I remember, I used to at QVC, it was very corporate. And, also maybe a little bit London. So, you're suited and booted, and my God, you arrive on time or before. I'll never forget somebody walking past my office. I'm obviously in a senior position. Work starts at 9. They kind of waltz in at 8:45, and they especially come past your desk where I would have been like hiding and like, you
Yes.
know, making a very quick escape. And they'd be like, "Oh, morning," and I'd be like, "Oh, hi. Like, are you okay?" And they're like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. Traffic's just so bad." And I was like, right, but those are not the important things, really. I mean, there's some office etiquette, there's some office respect that, you need to kind of get through. But yeah, I think it's from a leadership position, you're needing to actually make sure that it's not about, it's a two-way street. So I'm not sure if I answered exactly what you were asking, but I think that from a leadership perspective, um, it really is about being respectful for that person. It doesn't matter. And, even if you boil it down, it doesn't matter which state you came from, never mind what country you came from, what school you went to. Are you working hard? Are you respectful about the vision of the business? Are you on board with the strategy? Do you have a voice that is in keeping with, like where we're going? And doesn't mean we all have to be yes people, but actually those are the important things when it comes down to a team. And you know what? If you come from another country, land, state, whatever, great. As long as we're all on board, the more the merrier.
So, Judy, was it the CEO role you came out to Australia for?
No, actually, I came out as head of merchandising and planning, and then just really fortunate within a very short space of time, I took over logistics, or we started a logistics division, and then started looking after merchandise operations, and then, ended up with the presenters, producers, engineering, marketing, call center, and then then I ended up being the general manager.
Yes.
Um, and yeah, probably yeah, and then just eased into the CEO role, put it that way, because it all felt like it blended into one. Um, yeah.
Okay, so when did you, well, I'm going to take a step back, right? So,
Hmm.
and thank you for laying that out. I want to take a step back and say, I hear you say a lot that you were very lucky. I hear you were lucky
Hmm.
to get this and you were lucky to get
Hmm.
that, and I doubt that. So I'll probably get you to
Hmm.
break that down a bit because I think we create
Hmm.
luck. But what I do want to hear is you said you were lucky to have some wonderful leaders along the way,
Yes.
and I agree with you
Yes.
that can be luck.
Yes.
Did you hear some feedback along the way? Was there some feedback you needed to hear that was hard to hear at the time, but ended up being really important to your career?
Actually, yes. Um, I think I've always been super ambitious, whether it be at school, my first job, and I'll never forget. I was at American Swiss at Foschini Group, and someone said I had to do like a presentation, and someone said to me, Judy, you're great at driving results. You're great at kind of being focused. You're telling us where you're going, but don't forget, we're actually needing to all come with you. You need to bring us with you. And while some of us are with you, there are some people who are maybe not going to understand where you're wanting to go. So be a little bit more patient. Um, I'm not going to lie, it kind of manifests itself a little bit in that I'm quite straight talking. Um, I really don't like it when people beat around the bush. I don't want to feel like there's a surprise and they're not too, or they don't have the guts to tell me.
Mhm.
Um, so I think it's about delivery. And I think I learned then um, from an early age, then, it's not just about hitting targets. It's not just about pushing for transformational change. It really is, how do I get people to buy into it too? How do I get people to realize the vision and get excited about it too? And also to contribute what they have. There are so many great ideas, and how do they get to be part of it and take them with on the journey? So it's really about balancing strategy with empathy a little bit, balancing a little bit of kind of like hardcore, execution and focus with a little bit of influence. And I think maybe that's also helped me. Probably about 5, 6 years ago, I remember I was sitting in my office, and one of the buyers came in and she was asking me about something, and she had a problem with a vendor. We really needed to get it right. And operationally, there were some challenges. And we had a really good discussion because I knew she's passionate, maybe a little blunt around the edges, and worked through it. And she said, wow, you've got a really good way of saying that I was pretty rubbish at that, but actually making me feel quite special. And I was like, oh, I didn't mean to make you feel rubbish. And she said, no, no, no. Like, I understand now what I'm needing to do. And I think that it made me realize then very much about our role in a senior position is not about getting the glory and the being the title, but it's actually we're like vessels for change. We really are. It's a privileged position, and we should never forget that. And it's about how do you have these people and their career paths like work through you in order for them to succeed. Because the better they are, the better the company is going to be.
That's a really interesting shift. And I spend a lot
Mm.
of time with a lot of CEOs
Yeah.
who that shift as people become more senior, working out that
Mm.
actually you're not going to get the feedback and
Mm.
praise and things that you maybe enjoyed on the way through your career.
Yes.
Your role is to help other people get that and give that.
100%.
Yeah, it's a
Mm.
big change. So,
Mm.
was becoming a CEO always on your radar, or was there a point where, did someone help you see that that was a possibility? What's that story?
Um, I think the answer, truthfully, which doesn't sound nice, is that I always believed I was going to be a CEO. Not because I think I was like vehemently like, I'm going to be the CEO. I think I love leading.
Mm,
So, and I love having the authority to lead.
mm,
I love being responsible for very diverse and direct groups. I love setting a strategy, especially if there's a problem. So I don't think I necessarily thought, oh, I'm going to be a CEO by X. I think I automatically assumed it was my purpose, which also sounds really, in doesn't sound nice. But I think, that's my skill that I have. Maybe I'd be an awful accountant, awful singer. I can tell you that. I could never act or be on stage. But I love making people feel like they're part of something. So I don't think it was necessarily about CEO title, but I really have always wanted that leadership and I've always worked towards that leadership role.
Judy, can I ask you, it's interesting that you pause on that
Mm.
that doesn't sound nice, right? Does
Mm.
that does that come from ambitious may not be a perceived a positive word? Like what's because I love ambition, right? I think ambitions to do things
Yeah.
is
And I am ambitious and I'm not shy. Like I just think that one has to, there's a very fine line between being ambitious and so proud of one's own achievements and that you get to the cocky stage where you stop learning.
yes,
And I think that you see so many very talented people who get rightly so promoted into a position, but it goes to their head so fast
yes.
that they forget that there's so much more to still learn. There's nothing like a husband or your children to keep you in line. But, my husband always says to me when I go to work in the morning, he'll say to me, like, be kind, be humble, have a great day. My youngest son says to me every single morning, and I'm on a trip at the moment, and he still texts me every morning and he says, Mom, let your light shine.
Oh, how gorgeous.
I think that's what it is. It's not necessarily about, oh, you know, I'm the CEO. I'm really not precious about um, getting the better side of the table if I'm with a whole lot of buyers. That's just not my style. I also think that your focus is then incorrect. So I think probably I've seen a couple of those in my time, and I would never want that to come across because at the end of the day, I'm no better than anybody else. I'm maybe just more clear as to what I'd like from the situation. Maybe. I'm just in my sweet spot, put it that way, rather than, there's also something that we say in our family, and actually I've mentioned it, and there are a lot of people in my various teams that I've led along the way. And I'll always say, like I always used to say, I'm proud of you. Like we never say we're proud of each other in the family. We always say we're nice proud because pride in itself, I don't think is good,
Mm.
but being nice proud. So it's the positive side of being proud. So even in my team, they'll still text me. My old team will say to me, "Oh, Judy, I think I made you nice proud today."
Oh,
So
that's lovely. I love
yeah.
that. So
Mm.
let's go back to the CEO role then, because it sounds like
Mm.
you evolved into it. You just grew and kept
Yeah.
adding accountabilities and responsibilities until it was probably
Mm.
a natural step. But
Mm.
was there anything that surprised you about the CEO role when you got there?
Um, I think the surprise is that people automatically assume you're going to be different,
Yes.
or they assume that they have to, be a little bit more cautious around you. And I think also good lesson is to really make sure that you're even more visible to customers, more visible to everyone in your business. It's not just about your management team. It's about the people, from the warehouse who are packing things and making them realize that because so often the word and is so has so many different connotations that it feels like it's the higher up people. But actually the higher up people wouldn't be there if it wasn't for the people who are grafting all day long and making so much of the strategy work. And you can learn so much from everyone in the organization. So I think, yes, I think there's an expectation that comes to the role that you don't necessarily realize. Maybe it's even just amongst your friends or family, kind of like, oh, you're CEO now. I'm like, I'm still Judy at the
Yeah.
end of the day. I still laugh, I still cry, I still worry about things. But you know what? We're still following the same strategies we had yesterday.
Yeah.
Um, and I've still got the same attitude of responsibility and passion as I had yesterday for it, no matter if it was general manager or CEO. And obviously, you have certain expectations from whether your board or the private equity team, and you need to be respectful of that because it is a privilege to have that title.
Who were your kind of truth tellers in the sense that you're right?
Mm,
The
mm,
title comes along with people perhaps not being as open to share as many things
mm,
and a range of things, really common. Who
mm,
who gave you, you've got your family, but they don't necessarily see
mm,
every aspect at
mm.
work. Who was the truth teller at work?
Um,
How
do you
did
know what
you
I have?
find out what you
There's
needed?
two. Oh yes, no, no, sorry. There's two things that come to mind. One is more of a feeling, which I'm a big feeling person, but I'll never forget when I first started working, there was a gentleman by the name of John Hoffman, who was our CEO at the time at American Swiss. And, there was a car park for every CEO, the CFO, and he never parked in it. And everyone was like, why? Is he at work late? And he just said, I expect you to work as hard as I'm working. So if I manage to get to work early, I'll take the first parking. And when you manage, and if I arrive late, then I should be parking up where everyone else is. And I love that attitude. There's something about that which has stuck with me, obviously, metaphorically.
Mm.
Then there was another great leader for me and it's his words that keep me real. Um, I had a gentleman by the name of Steve Hoffman, who was the CEO at QVC UK. He went on to go and be the CEO of QVC Italy. It's obviously a multi-global company, CEO in Japan, and then headed up, he was the president of QVC globally. And he was not shy about telling me like it was. From whether he thought I needed to put more effort into something, or he'd go, bit of a lazy answer that was too easy for you just to reply, or actually, okay, I don't necessarily agree with you, but it's your chance to prove me wrong. And then he'd also give me praise. He'd say, not overly fluffy, um, but he would go, okay, I think you worked hard on that and you got the result you wanted. He was really good. So I often find myself in a situation thinking, oh, what did Steve say now? And how could I honestly answer him? So to him, I'm really grateful because he embraced change. He supported me when things were really tough, but he didn't dwell in the negative. And he also was incredibly hardworking. So, despite his incredible position, he started NBC Asia, um, well read, really strategic leader. And yet, he always had time for people. And he never once acted like the big shot. He'd walk around and talk to people. He would maybe not always overly people person, like in general, but on a one-on-one basis, he really taught me a lot. So I feel as if he's my benchmark that I
What
use.
about in your role as CEO? How do you
Yeah.
get feedback about from your team
Mm.
about how they find you as CEO, or the board or things like that? How do you get the unfiltered feedback you need?
Not shy about asking,
Good.
um, but that doesn't always get
Mm.
the result that you're wanting because I think that depending on the person and their performance and how you've been dealing with it, they might also come back with a different answer. I think the proof is very much about how they come to you continuously with something good
Mm.
as well as a problematic,
Mm.
and how you can maybe support them even though they're going through a tough time and maybe they're not overly happy with the way you're doing something. Um, and sometimes you realize it just is a lonely position. I think sometimes you have to take them out for a coffee.
Yeah.
You have to be I always believe in deal with the elephant in the room and just say it. Just say, listen, I know what, it's been really awkward between us over the last sort of month or two. I feel as if there's like a hangover about, what we discussed last time. Maybe I could have done it a bit differently. This is how I'm seeing it. But obviously, it's not resonating well. How are you seeing it from your side? Because actually, we need to get through this. I think you don't have to love the people that you're working with, but you can respect them for the knowledge that they have. So I always say, I'm not here to go to movies with you, but I am here to be the person that has to make the tough decision. I can't always tell, in that position. You can't always, everyone thinks that like, oh, I cannot believe she's done this. But
Mm.
they don't necessarily know the background information about something or someone that's had to leave or a decision that you've had to make that's quite tough. So, that is tough. I do think for example, I belonged to the CEO Institute at the time. It was really good. I think Vistage is really good. I think it's really important to have like a peer-to-peer advisory board group that you belong to. I think it's critical. I think you need to be able to learn from other people in similar positions that you can talk to. I think it's very important to have a mentor of sorts. I've got very fortunate enough to have two mentors who are business coaches who are not afraid to tell me straight, like, did you rush that? Um, but I think anyone finding themselves in that position, I know definitely has helped me. Is belonging to something like, a peer-to-peer advisory group. And if you're still uncomfortable with that, like Vistage, I think is fantastic. Get some training, um, being able to just air it out and say, I'm actually really worried about this. Like, is this the right way to do it? Because often it's a lonely position, like you were mentioning before. And you kind of feel as if I don't want to be lambasted or feel inadequate by mentioning I'm a little bit worried about how this is going to pan out. Um, and then actually, in those advisory groups, you end up realizing, wow, actually, a lot of us are going through this, and it's
I'm
not the
not on my
first
own.
time. Yeah. And actually, everyone's got a business coach,
Yeah.
whether you can afford to do it weekly or monthly or quarterly. It's so important, actually, just to get some food for the soul.
So, Judy, how do we know, I remember someone saying to me, when you step into the CEO role, you're going to look around and there will be hundreds of things that you want to fix.
Yeah.
And the excellent advice I had at the time was, because they knew me well and they knew I was
Mm.
impatient, was choose three or you'll kill everyone. How did
Good.
you work out
Mm.
what the critical issues were that you needed to focus on? And then how did you get your team aligned
Mm.
with that?
Mm. It's a good question. I think first, I think there's always the like, oh, wow, what I'm going to achieve. But I think you actually need to figure out what does it really boil down to? What's mission critical? Like what, whether it's your board or, the owners, the private equity team, that you believe in too, that you're aligned with. What is the company goal? And be very clear about what that really means. I also think, I was taught something really valuable that I use in different shapes and forms, but know your departure point, know your arrival point. And that arrival point, you need to break down in terms of what station do you want to be at 3 months, 6 months, 12, 18. Be very clear with who you're reporting into. So whether that's the board, the private equity team, your owner, whatever it is in your different situation, and break that down because you can't be and articulate that. Very important to articulate that with your management team, make sure that it resonates with them, get their feedback so that you're then on that journey together. Because otherwise, they're thinking sometimes, depending on the company or the problem, that you're going to be saving them from this big thing. And then in 6 months, they think, oh, I can't believe she hasn't fixed that. But it's to take them with on the journey. I think, just second part of the question, it's about being visible.
Mm,
It's about, I really believe in an open door.
mm,
I think it's very much about it's about people. So I think that you've got to sort of look at it and kind of establish credibility that you need to own that position too. Someone gave me really good advice. I think I moved to be head of jewelry at QVC, and I had this gentleman called Simon Houghton, who was another senior buyer in the company, and he said to me, Judy, start out as to how you intend to finish. And sometimes we think, oh, let me just ease into it. I don't want to upset anybody. And before you know it, 3 months later, they kind of think, oh, what just you the naysayers, or maybe the people that didn't want you there in the job, are going like, yeah, once again. So I think you've got to start out as to how you intend to finish. Be credible. I think you have to establish trust, and you have to be very clear on direction and explain it again and again and again and articulate it. Because for somebody in the finance team versus somebody in marketing versus somebody in buying versus someone in the warehouse, that same exact direction is going to look very different. Also, be open to hearing what that means, what they think it means for them. Um, and I think yeah. So I think it's being very clear on direction. Choose, like you said, um, sort of one or two, I think it's one clear thing, and then what the two spin-off things that go with that.
Mm.
And then be very clear about the stages of execution, because normally it's going to be something big, right? That the company is needing to evolve into. So say now it's needing to evolve in its digital mapping or processes. But Rome wasn't built in a day. So then if somebody asks, at least, you're right, we are on the road to that. We've managed to achieve this, but our goal is by the end of whatever that year is, 6 months, that's our aim to do that. And celebrate success. Celebrate success.
Changing direction now. Why don't we have more female CEOs?
Ah, do you know what? I think we have to allow ourselves to believe that we can do it.
Mm.
I think that there is such a thing about, work-life balance, like how do I be a good mother and a good wife and they're still quite stereotypical roles. And I'm going to say, I'm a girl. I want my husband to open up the door for me. So, you know what? If somebody doesn't believe in that, I'm sorry. But I am still a lady and I want to, those are just things that are ingrained in me. So those are important. But that doesn't mean I don't have a brain. And I want to have children and I want to go to the school concert because that's important for my children. And you know what? Then that means it's important for me. So I think it's about allowing oneself as a female in business today to go, it's okay. A good friend, I remember arriving very late for a school concert once and then, having to stand at the back and all these like tiger moms were already sitting in the front. You can see they'd already brought protein snacks for the kids. And I was like, oh my God, I'm just failing as a mom. And like I mean, probably managed to get the last song of the concert. And she just said to me, don't worry about it. You're being the best mom that you can be. And I was like, you know what? You're right.
Yeah.
I can own this. I'm being the best mother I can be. So I think we need to give ourselves a little bit of permission to
Yeah.
be fabulous. Actually, one of my best friends lives in Los Angeles, and she is a very accomplished woman and is the wife of a really well-known actor, and she's always having to manage her family. And I look at the way that she does it, looks like it's seamless.
Mm.
But I think you have to give yourself permission. And I don't think so often we just think, oh, it's going to be too hard. So I know I didn't really answer you so well,
Oh, you
but
did, you did, you did. It's about
hmm,
believing we can and about permission, and I
yeah,
think that's and being giving ourselves a break
yeah.
as far
And
as
also as women, sorry to interrupt you, also as women is to like, we don't need to be this nasty sometimes. Like sometimes women, we're like overly ambitious. But at the end of the day, we need to remember that we're human. And the people in our team, it's about giving everybody that praise. And I think, and then it allows, whether you're male or female, it allows you to feel confident in your next step. Um, we don't have to trample on anybody else, but yeah,
I
work hard.
think, as you say that, I want to call out those gorgeous mums because I think as working mums, we need a really broad network, right, to save us in those
Yes.
moments that you just talked about. So I want to thank those mums that have offered protein snacks to my kids along
Oh,
the way.
thank God they exist. I know they are heroes. I promise
Exactly,
you. Those
exactly.
super moms who know the school schedule better than anyone else are like my
Get in a
saving
group,
grace.
get in a WhatsApp group and make sure that, they've got your back and you've got theirs in another way. So wholeheartedly.
100%. Mm,
Judy, wonderful conversation with you.
mm,
I want to ask you the final question that I ask of everybody
mm.
in our interviews, which is what does brave feminine leadership mean to you? And do you think it needs to change?
I think it's about owning your space. I think it's about don't be afraid to be bold. Be honest about what it is that you would like for you. And that might include being successful in a job, being a great wife and a great mom, and that's okay. I think it's about having your voice known, make it known. Don't be afraid. Um, don't hold back. I think it's just about even when your voice is maybe or what you have to say is a little unpopular, it's okay. Voice it. Have women are resilient. We're adaptable. Don't try and act as if you're more precious than a man, because you certainly don't want the man to act more as if he's more precious than you. Be respectful about people around you. And then I think we're on a much better level playing field. And we start rewarding people within our team for their experience. But be bold as a girl, and be a girl. We're allowed to be feminine. I think go for it. Um, you know what? I'm not in the days of wearing heels anymore. It's probably a little bit too fatal, but wear some lipstick, wear pink, whatever it takes, but be bold and be yourself. But don't rely on those things to get you far. Rely on your skill set.
Mm. Judy, amazing. I'm left with not only thanking you, but the question that I've wanted to ask the entire interview is, with your
Okay.
son saying, shine that light, Mum, have
Mm.
you said that to him? Where's that
Oh,
come from?
he's a beautiful little soul. I mean, all three are. But he just started saying it probably about 3, 4 years ago. And every day I'll go, Maxie, shine it brighter today. And he'll go, yes, Mom, I will. And it's a beautiful reminder about to be yourself and actually choose how you want your day to be. We've got choices, all of us, doesn't matter what position we're in. And you can choose to think that it's going to be, oh, today's going to be such a tough day. Oh, I can't stand this person at work, or like, oh, that's such a tough problem. Instead of going, wow, you know what? Yes, it's going to be tough. Don't dismiss it. But let me tackle that with how I know how to tackle it. And maybe I'm going to learn something today. Um, Let your light shine. Like, try and find the positive in the situation. If someone's nasty, be nice, do something that they least expect. And so, yes, I'm very fortunate to have him remind me of that daily. And yes, I probably don't say it enough, but I try and reply to him in the mornings as well and tell him to let his light shine. And then we also find verses or songs or mugs or pictures in windows where we see a sunshine, and we always send that to each other. So, a good reminder.
Absolutely love it. So,
Mhm.
from your son and you, and from me to our audience listening today, light shine.
Let your light shine. Thanks so much, Melissa.